Hi, this is Jeff Brindley from RWS Financial Group, and welcome to Taxes in Retirement. In this workshop, we'll talk a little bit about taxes in retirement, as well as how to invest in retirement. And without further ado, we're going to get started, and we'll get started with a little bit of levity. So I've got to get this to work. There we go. So a little bit of levity. I finally put something aside for my retirement. I put aside my plans to retire. So hopefully this is not you. But if it is you, I think we can help a little bit. If it's not you, then that's wonderful. If you've got things under control, that's absolutely excellent. Maybe we can help even make that retirement even better than you originally planned. So sit back and relax. We'll talk a little bit about in this workshop about taxes in retirement, about investing in retirement. And I think there's a really great content here. And I hope you stick with us through this. Workshop objectives. Introduce us as RWS. Now, some of you have heard this, and you can fast forward through some of this since this is a recording. But I am going to introduce RWS and who we are and what we stand for. Educate and communicate. We're going to educate and communicate you in this work and communicate with you in this workshop. And we're going to illustrate as well, kind of illustrate some of those concepts. So to introduce us a little bit, RWS Group is a group. We have about 8 offices here in Michigan. There's one in Ohio, there's one in Florida, and we're starting up a second one in Florida as well. And we're adding another office here to Michigan. So we are definitely in growth mode. We are growing, and I think that kind of comes back to the educate and communicate, because we are educating. One of the things that we've done over the last year is we've done about over 100 of these workshops, free workshops, all over Michigan. And we've probably done another 50 with employers and their employees. So we've just done a ton of educating, a ton of workshops all over the place. The communicate piece as well, if a client calls me, I'm going to call them right back. So that's where the communication comes in with RWS. My clients get my cell phone, and when they call me, I'll call them right back. Additionally, I will touch base with them once in a while. And on top of that, if something major happens, like this pandemic, and the market drops, I'm going to call them. I'm going to let them know this is what's going on. This is what I'm doing for you. So that's where all the communication comes in as well. We are a group of independent financial advisors. That doesn't mean that we don't have support. That means that we're independent. It's a good thing because we don't have somebody on high from corporate telling us what we should invest our clients in. And that's critical because we can sit down with our clients and make sure that we understand the client's situation before we make any recommendations. We don't have somebody saying, well, you need to sell this because this is going to make you the best profit. So we are independent, and that is a good thing. We are backed up by Cambridge Investment Research. That is our broker-dealer, and you can look them up online. They've won a lot of awards, and I would suggest that they're, if not the top, they're one of the top broker-dealers in the country. So that's a little bit about us, and so we're going to proceed here. A little bit about my personal core values for my business. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. I'm a financial advisor grounded in Christian values of honesty, integrity, respect, kindness, and a sense of social responsibility. And so that is I will not push my religion on anybody else. I respect everybody's religion. This is just my core values and how I run my business. So I strive to honor God in all that I do. This is reflected in how I conduct my business and how I care for my clients, vendors, and support staff. So again, if you don't want somebody that has core values of honesty, integrity, respect, kindness, and social responsibility, then you don't want me as an advisor. But this workshop still has great information in it, and I hope you stay with me throughout this workshop. So the commitment to this workshop is to provide sound financial information, help you identify goals, offer personal strategy session. So at the end, I will offer a free personal strategy session for you. You just need to call me, and we can sit down, set up a date and time, and again, it's all free, and that'll come at the end. So how do you envision your retirement? It's unique for each individual that comes into my office. Could be golf, could be travel, vacation home. It could be a quieter lifestyle. Whatever it is for you, it's unique for each individual and each couple that comes into my office. That's something you should spend a little bit of time thinking about and talking about if you're a couple. Length of retirement really is getting longer and longer every year. And so, if you're 65, there's a good chance that you're going to live to 90. Whether you're a man or a woman, there's a good chance. So you want to make sure that you're planning for the next 30, 35 years in some cases, particularly if you retire a little bit early. So you've got to plan so that money lasts over that time frame. Impact of inflation. So when I do my financial plans for my clients, we figure in inflation, because inflation has a big impact. It's kind of it's silent because you don't really see it creeping up on you. Inflation right now is a little over 2%, but this particular graph assumes 4%. You can see that $1 million today is only worth $820,000 in just 5 years with a 4% inflation. So inflation it's critical that we plan for it, and if you plan for it, then you can deal with it. But it's important that you plan for it. A lot of people don't think about inflation when they're thinking about retirement, so it's very important. Lifestyle. So you will probably need, I get this question all the time, how much will I need? You'll probably need about 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income to live comfortably in retirement. That's the same lifestyle, everything else. And of course, that's dependent upon, whether you've got your house paid off, you've got a car paid off, that type of thing. And so we can adjust based on your unique situation, but it's generally 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income. Primary sources, personal savings and investments, your 401k, that type of thing, Social Security, and pension income. So typically what we'll do is we'll take a look at Social Security and pension income first, and then take a look back at your savings to see if the savings will fill that gap. So a three-legged stool, however, a lot of people don't have the pension anymore. So Social Security, personal savings, any other types of income, could be rental income, that type of thing. But we'll take a look at all the different areas of income that you might have. Continued employment earnings. So here's a little bit of a graph and statistics that 79% of people believe that they're going to work in retirement, but only 29% do. So that's really something to keep in mind. It's a big gap in the percentage of those people that think they're going to and the people that actually do. And that could be due to health reasons. That could be due to finding employment is difficult at age 65 and beyond, all kinds of different reasons. But it's important to realize that you may not, if you want to find retirement, you may not be able, or not retirement, but find work in retirement, you may not be able to find that. So that's something to keep in mind and plan for. Deferred tax, taxable, and tax-free. Those are the different types of income that you can take. Generally speaking, tax-deferred buckets are employer-sponsored plans like a 401k, IRAs, and annuities are tax-deferred. Taxable buckets could be stocks, bonds, cash alternatives, and mutual funds. And don't be confused. You can have stocks in an IRA. You can have mutual funds in an IRA or employer-sponsored plans. You can have those in there. But generally speaking, the taxable buckets are stocks, bonds, cash alternatives, and mutual funds. So one of the things you need to identify is what to spend first. And again, it's unique to you as an individual. I always tell people that financial planning is a lot like doctors. You wouldn't go into a doctor and say, okay, doc, what kind of drugs should I be taking, without discussing it, maybe going through some tests, those types of things. So we're the same way. We need to take a look at statements and things like that before we can make any recommendations as to, should I be taking from my taxable or my tax deferred? Should I be taking winners before losers? All of that stuff. Any of that type of planning, we need to really dig deep before we can make any recommendations. I've had people ask me, what should I be invested in? And I always tell them it depends. Let's sit down for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and figure it out. Figure out what your situation is like, and they just kind of laugh. But it's important. You got to dig into this stuff. It's important to think about and plan for. So main distribution methods, there are pluses and minuses with all of these, and we're going to touch on these. You can stay put where you're at. You may have money in a 401k or something that's working just fine for you. You could take a lump sum distribution. You got to be careful with taxes because you're going to get pounded with taxes. You can take a systematic withdrawal, something that's consistent and pretty much the same every month. You could do a lifetime annuity. Or you could consider an IRA rollover. So an IRA rollover, again, some pluses and minuses there. All this stuff needs to be considered. So a lump sum distribution gives you immediate access and control of your funds. The downside is income taxes are due, and it could be, if you've been saving a long time, it could be pretty drastic. You could do systematic withdrawals, a fixed dollar amount on a regular schedule. Typically with fixed dollar amounts, a lot of times you got to be careful because that may be all that you're allowed to take. In other words, if you have a major issue like a hole in your roof and you need money, your furnace blows up and you need some money, you may not be able to take additional money out of those systematic withdrawals. It all depends. It all depends on what your situation is. So lifetime annuity payments, here again, you could get guaranteed lifetime payments through an annuity. And for single life, all annuities are different these days. They got a lot of different bells and whistles. But this is kind of a general illustration of what you might receive on a single life. And then if you add a survivor, the payout may go down. Each individual annuity, you have to take a look at the merits and the drawbacks of each individual annuity. But this is kind of a general illustration of what to look for in a lifetime annuity. Which distribution method is appropriate for you? It depends. It depends on your age, your health, your liquidity needs, market volatility versus preservation. Do you want to preserve money for, to give to beneficiaries so when you pass away? Tax situation, all of that is included. And we sit down with you and help you try and figure all that out, whatever's best for you. So IRA, rollover versus a transfer. So when you do an IRA rollover, you would have continued tax deferral. Generally, you're going to have more investment options. So you may have in your 401k 30 investment options. You roll over to an IRA, you may have as many as 30,000. So you get a lot more investment options. Consolidation. Some people want to consolidate multiple 401ks or IRAs. Potential to stretch is no longer available through an IRA. It used to be available until recently in the Secure Act to stretch savings. That's no longer available due to the Secure Act. It's one of the things that was taken away. There are other ways to quote unquote stretch, but the typical stretch IRA is not available anymore. And then mandatory distributions at age 72 used to be 70 and a half, and that's where the Secure Act did kind of work out in the positive. It's now 72 for a traditional IRA. So mandatory distributions aren't required until age 72. So IRA rollover considerations, direct transfer versus rollover check. I always recommend direct transfer. If you get a rollover check, they're going to withhold 20%. Then there's a timeline. It's a 60-day rule that you have to make sure within those 60 days you roll it over into an IRA, or you're going to be taxed on it. So the direct transfer is always best. Additionally, if you take a check, one rollover per year rule, it does not apply for a direct transfer. For if you do take a check, the one rollover per year rule does apply. So that's something to be cognizant of. So, here is just an illustration. You plant the seed and watch it grow. And that's the key with planning, I believe, is that you plant the seed, you do your planning, you review it on a yearly basis at least, and you watch things grow. So consider the advantages of an IRA or Roth IRA as well. Roth IRAs have many advantages. Tax-free, not tax-deferred, tax-free qualified distributions. You have no required distributions. So at age 72, you aren't required to start taking your money out. So that's an advantage. Taxes owed on assets converted to a Roth. So if you were convert a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, taxes will be owed when you convert. We generally recommend converting over time because we've got some tax map software that enables us to give you a little bit of direction as to how much you should convert on a yearly basis so you don't fall into another tax bracket. So you have to be careful if you're going to convert to from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. We can help with that, but you just need to be careful on how that's done. Income eligibility on a Roth to make contributions to a Roth. So if you're over, I believe the eligibility in 2020 is $139,000 for a single individual. So if you're a single individual and you make over that amount, then it kind of tapers off. So that Roth, you don't get the benefit of the Roth like you would. And eventually, you can't contribute to a Roth anymore. For a married couple, I believe it's around $206,000 for year 2020. So if you make over $206,000, then you can't contribute to a Roth anymore. So if you're under those, the good news is you can contribute to a Roth. And my guess is that taxes will be, this is my personal opinion, that taxes will be higher in the future because we've got a heck of a lot of debt we're drumming up right now. So that's something to consider. So we do have a personal tax map that we can run for you. Again, if you sit down with us and go through strategy session, then the personal tax map is free and the financial plan is free. If you want to do a personal tax map, we almost always do a financial plan and sometimes do a personal tax map for those people that want to do it. So something to consider, help you kind of control your taxes a little bit. So understanding distribution rules, at age 59 and a half, you can start taking retirement funds without the 10% penalty. So on a traditional IRA or a 401k, you can now start taking at 59 and a half. You can take distributions without the 10% penalty, early withdrawal penalty. If you pass away, that's another exception. The money would pass on to your beneficiaries at that time without the 10% penalty. Separation for service at age 55 or older, you can start taking the periodic withdrawals. So a few exceptions, medical exceptions as well. They have to qualify, and those medical expenses have to exceed 10% of your adjusted gross income. So whenever in doubt, give me a call, and we can walk through that. Additional IRA exceptions: qualified higher education expenses, as long as those education expenses qualify. A lot of rules behind that. First-time home purchase, $10,000 lifetime maximum, and 72T. 72T is simply taking your retirement, and you have to be careful here because you're kind of locking this in. You're going to take your retirement over your life expectancy. So it would be even payments over your life expectancy. So that's another one. Don't see those very often, but once in a while. So key RMD rules, required minimum distribution rules. Latest date of first distribution is April 1st of the year after you turn 72. Due to the Secure Act. It used to be 70 and a half. May delay withdrawals from current employer's plan if still employed. So you can delay those withdrawals as long as you're still employed. And then annual RMD depends on your age. So there's a percentage, and it goes up every year. Every year you get older, they want to take a larger percentage of your retirement. When I say take, they want to take it. They want you to take it out so that they can tax it. So they want you to take a larger percentage of that withdrawal so they can tax it. You can reinvest it, do whatever you want with it, but they're going to take they're going to require you to take a larger amount out so that they can tax it every year. So that's how RMDs work. So failure to take your required distribution. So let's say you're required to take $6,000 out for the year and you don't do it. They're going to penalize you 50% of that $6,000. So that'd be $3,000. So it's important that you take your required minimum distribution every year. Asset allocation, all asset allocation is an efficient mix of assets for an investor, and it's based on your risk tolerance and your timeline to retirement. And if you're in the middle of retirement, a lot of different factors. So on the left-hand side, we have a more conservative investor. They got 50% in bonds, 30% in stocks, and some cash, 20% in cash. And on the right-hand side, you have an aggressive investor. They got a lot in stocks. This is somebody that might be younger, has a long time before retirement, this aggressive investor, and they might have an aggressive personality too. Just because you're younger doesn't mean you should be an aggressive investor. Your personality may not lend itself to that. Now, if you're if you're 75% in stocks and the stock market drops 20-30% and you're not sleeping well, you shouldn't be in an aggressive portfolio. So that's one of the things that we talk about when we get together is where should you be based on your particular situation. Again, that's all different depending on where you're at. So this is kind of a cool picture. I don't know if this guy is just gazing off into the future, but I thought it was kind of a cool picture anyways. So during the accumulation phase, so we're going to talk a little bit more about investing as a retiree or a pre-retiree. So during the accumulation phase, if you earn good returns up front and bad returns at the end, doesn't really matter. If you invest $100,000 in this scenario, you're going to build up your portfolio to $154,600 or $764 rather dollars during the accumulation phase. Same is true during the accumulation phase. $100,000 invested, but the bad returns comes at the beginning and the good returns come at the end. You'll still have $154,764. No difference. And you're going to see the slide here. It says, sequence of returns doesn't matter during the accumulation phase. Again, this is when you're building up your assets. You're building your assets in anticipation of retirement. Well, so there's no difference here. Sequence of returns doesn't matter. During the distribution phase, typically when you're retired, but not always, if you're taking distributions, and here I guess in this case we have distributions of $6,000 annually, great returns in the beginning, bad returns at the end, $105,000. Not too bad. You've been taking money, $6,000. You started with $100,000, and you're still at $105,000. So that's not too bad. That's if you got great returns in the beginning. But look what happens when you have bad returns in the beginning. When you're taking a distribution of $6,000, same return, everything. So let's take a look here. Same return as when you had great returns. Here, you got the average return of 6%. Here you have the average return of 6%. The only thing that's changed is that you get the bad returns up front. The bad returns up front. You're going to end up with $38,000 instead of the $105,000. You're going to end up with $38,000 if in the beginning you have bad returns, and that's why we're so cautious. A few years before you retire, in the first few years, you start taking distributions from your assets. That's why we're so cautious during that period, because it drastically affects the amount of money you're going to have in 10 years if you get bad returns right off the bat. And so it's critical. It's critical that we pay attention to these early years you're taking distributions. Sequence of returns has a big impact during distribution phase. So investors, when they're taking distributions, I think it's even more important that you have a financial professional helping you through this period, because it can make or break you, quite frankly, literally. So look at the difference. Losing money in the early years of retirement can hurt you. So we at RWS look at really three primary life stages. The first is build. That's when you're throwing money into your 401k and you're building your nest egg. The second is protect, and the protect phase is a few years before retirement and a couple years into retirement. And so we saw how crucial that is with that prior example. And then the enjoy phase, which is the primary retirement years. So we break it up really into 3 different life stages. And so for the retirement stage, when you first start taking, and into the future, you start taking money, you start taking income from your retirement, from your assets. We've got a little example here for you. So $850,000 portfolio in assets divided into 3 parts. And so this has been a strategy that we use, and I'll just outline it for you. And sometimes we call it the bucket strategy, but these look like briefcases, I know. So we'll call it the briefcase strategy for this workshop. So what we're doing here is $850,000 portfolio, $206,026 is going to go into the first briefcase. $169,338 will go into the second briefcase. And then $474,636 will go into the third briefcase. And you'll see the reasons behind this. So in this first briefcase, I'll try and move my face here a little bit. In this first briefcase, fixed income, it's invested in a fixed income vehicle, something that is designed not to lose money, but earn about 3%. And this 206,026 represents, along with a little bit of interest that you're going to earn, represents 5 years of income. So we set aside 5 years of income in an investment that's designed not to go down. And the reason being is that you don't want to take money out of an investment that goes down. So let's say in the first year you have a 20% downturn. Really, this is not going to change because it's an invested in fixed income vehicle. And so you can take your money out of this briefcase because you don't want to take money out of a briefcase that's going to be going down, out of an asset base that's going to be going down. So we set aside 5 years into this briefcase. So over here, this money is designed to be invested over the next 5 years. 4%, maybe 5% is the target. So this money, this investment can go up a little bit and down a little bit, but since it's got 5 years, it's got time to recover, right? If it goes down a little bit early on, it's got time to recover. And so we're going to be investing that money in a conservative investment, but something that's going to earn a little bit more. And then this last bucket, the largest bucket, is going to be invested more growth oriented. And the time frame on this bucket or this briefcase is 10 years. So it's got time to go up and down a little bit. It's in a growth vehicle and it's designed to earn about 6%, maybe 6 or 7%. But it'll have its ups and downs, but it's got 10 years to recover. Let's say it goes down in the second year. It's got 8 years to recover after that, right? That's the whole purpose of that last briefcase. So this one is going to be depleted after 5 years, right? You've been taking your $45,000 a year, and it's designed to be depleted after 5 years. The second bucket grows from 169 to 206. Well, look at here. There's the 206, right? After 5 years, this grows to 206. Where do you think that money is going to go? It's going to go over here to resupply you with income over the next 5 years. So the first 5 years is already taken care of. The second 5 years is taken care of here. This third briefcase is going to grow to $850,000. Well, that's quite a coincidence because that's where you started at $850,000. So in essence, now you're starting all over again. You've got another $850,000. And that money then is going to be dispersed into these buckets. So you're going to start up your 10 years all over again. And the idea behind this strategy is to have a perpetual income, a nice safe bucket, conservative bucket, and a growth bucket, or briefcase in this case, over time. And so that's the strategy that we'll typically use for our retirement clients, to have that income available when they need it. You can pull from this bucket anytime. Don't pull from this bucket. Don't pull from this bucket. But here you've got your steady income, and then we help you build your budget around that income. So we've had a long workshop. Where do we go from here? Remember, I indicated that I would have a personal strategy. I'd offer you a personal strategy session. It would be absolutely free. Sit down and talk a little bit about your particular situation. And so the idea is that I would ask you 4 questions. And I'll actually give you these questions here in a minute. I'll just ask you 4 questions. What would you learn that's new? You will learn a lot more because it'll be on your specific situation. Learn a lot more than this video can teach. How long will it take? Less than an hour. We'll go longer if you want to, but it's designed to last less than an hour. We don't want to take up all your time. We just want to help you. So what should I bring? You don't have to bring anything. We do encourage you to bring statements that you want us to look at, and we can sit down and do that. Will I try and sell you anything? Absolutely not. This is just to go through what you have and help you with that, help you with a little bit of planning. How will I feel when it's over? Probably happy and smart. That's what we're going for. That's what we're shooting for. That you're going to feel happy and smart. Where we will meet? Well, it's interesting with the pandemic. We can meet anywhere, really. We can meet at the office. We've got all the appropriate protocols in place, wearing masks. We've got the antiseptic wipes and all of that. We stay 6 feet apart. We wear the masks. So everything's been sanitized at our office. So we can meet there. We can meet via Zoom if you'd like to do that. Really whatever way you'd like to meet. And we found that meeting by Zoom actually works pretty good. I'll review any statements you might have ahead of time, and then we can discuss everything via Zoom. And I can also show you my screen as to anything I might recommend for you. Next steps, 3 possibilities. After the strategy session, we can decide that we want to work together and begin to discuss specific ideas for you and your situation. Number 2, we decide that we like each other, but the time is not right just yet. We can set a date in the future to follow up. And the third is we decide we don't like each other, call each other names, and leave the room or the Zoom, I guess, screaming. And that hasn't happened yet, so we're pretty confident that that won't happen. Those are the 3 possibilities. And here are the questions. What specific that I would ask? What specific plans have you made to make sure you never outlive your retirement savings? So a pretty critical question. And the idea is, I know, and I've talked to people and they say, well, geez, I'm retiring in a few months. Did I save enough? And we can sit down and talk a little bit about that. What would happen to your financial situation if the stock market dropped 40%, like it did during the financial crisis in 2008, 2009? What would happen? Are you prepared for that? Is your portfolio prepared for that? If you're just coming up to retirement, that's something you really need to take a look at. If you're in the middle of retirement, what would happen if you drop 40%? If you died this year, how would your family's lifestyle have to change? Are you prepared for the tax consequences? So good questions there. Have you thought about that? These are things you need to sit down and think about. What plans have you and your children made for dealing with rising healthcare costs and unexpected medical expenses? So this really has to do with you, your medical expenses. If you're in long-term care, assisted living, have you talked about this with your children? Where's the money going to come from? That's something you should do. So personal strategy session, you get a chance to talk. I've been talking this whole time. You've been watching this video, and I thank you for that, but I look forward to listening and listening to your story. You'll learn some new ideas that you can use on your own. You'll get to see where we work if you come into the office. You'll get to meet my team. So whether we meet in person or via Zoom, you can meet the team as well. They're even smarter than me. So you will get something valuable. Get a free tax map and a free financial plan. Again, we'll do we'll do tax map too for anybody, but financial plan we do pretty much automatically, and then upon request we'll do the tax map as well, depending on your situation, if that's appropriate or not. We believe that you'll have an experience unlike any other advisors. Again, the education, the communication, has really been second to none. So don't miss the chance. A lot of times we'll have people, when we do this live, they'll say, geez, I don't have my calendar. That's okay. More than likely you're at home. You've got your calendar with you. You can stop this video. Check out the dates that you have available. Check out the times you have available. I want to think about everything I've heard tonight. And of course, with the video, you can do that. Go ahead and think about it. But I'd still suggest that you go ahead and set a date a couple weeks out in advance. If you go back and you finish this video and you go and think about it, more than likely you're not going to call me. I would suggest give me a call, set a date 2 weeks out. If that doesn't work, we'll reschedule it, whatever. But go ahead and set it. It kind of forces you, and I don't know if forces is the word I want to use, but it encourages you to actually set the date and do something about it. So I would still suggest that you give me a call and set a date. We can always cancel it. We can reschedule it, whatever. And then I already have an advisor. And so the only thing I would say here is, if you already have an advisor, rather than watching this video, why didn't you call them? Why didn't you call them and say, hey, I've got a lot of questions for you. What about retirement? And asking your advisor pretty much the same things that we talked about here. So I think that there's something that is in there that's saying, you know what, I need a second opinion or something.